is that we're tracking some students that are exiting the system in terms of out-of-district placement. So it reduces our reliance on that funding for out-of-district placements. We may be able to use some of the funding that perhaps we will have in addition in our budget this year to prepay tuitions for next year, reducing our cost. So we can use that at least to close the gap. I'm hoping for $100,000 in terms of reduction in terms of the cost of out-of-district placements this year that we can put into prepayments so it can go into next year to offset our deficit. That still is a fairly substantial gap. If you cut if Chapter 70 is not cut, you're looking at least a little under $400,000. The town is looking at still some difficulties, not just because the state is reducing their revenue, but also because they're still seeing some pieces of their budget continue to increase, including insurance and pensions. Although there is some language in some of the news releases lately that talk about perhaps some pension reform and some changes to the regulations surrounding health insurance that may provide some relief in that area. The other part that people have asked me to consider is this idea that if we're 50% of the town in the sense that our budget amounts to a little over 50% of the town's budget, when people consider that the town's revenue can increase year to year by 2.5%, should some of that increase be designated to the schools or not? That's still something we're talking to the town about through the subcommittee, the budget subcommittee that the town has created. But a 2% increase to our budget from FY11 to FY12 is about $373. So if we were able to apply that increase to our budget, and we don't see a decrease in Chapter 70 and all things stay the same, and we do experience the savings in special ed, we could conceivably cover just the programs as we have them this year to next year, plus a 1% increase in salaries. Does that make sense so far? Now that's only if Chapter 70 stays the way it is and we can apply a 2.5% increase. We are seeing the movement towards replacing the roofs here and at the Macomber, and replacing some windows here and at the middle school. We have just sent to the state, to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, our request for them to send us the list of project managers. This is in anticipation that we're hoping the town will vote on March 1st to allow us to go out to bond, or the authority to bond up to $2.5 million to repair these parts of our buildings. Although the state's saying if we follow their protocols, we should be able to get back 46% of that back. So hopefully we won't even have to go out to bond for $2.5 million. It'll be that minus 46%. And we'll see if we can see some some savings next year, but I think some of those savings that we may be able to create by becoming more efficient are going to go into paying for increased cost of heating and electricity. So again, we're already asking for the capital improvements on March 1st, and hopefully we will be able to not even borrow that amount of money. There is I know the Capital Improvement Committee for the town has also asked whether there are other projects maybe that would not be reimbursable through the green projects from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, but other projects that should be done in the schools and in other areas of the town that would be perhaps presented at the spring town meeting as capital bonding issue to be put before the voters. So that should be coming up as well. So all these pieces are going to play together when we go and ask for our budget for next year. Budget really increased 1% from the previous year to this year. Again, we have a budget gap if, and again, this is a big caveat, if they reduce Chapter 70 by 5%, it'll be almost 600,000. Possible levy limit would be 373. So hopefully, if we don't get that reduction in Chapter 70, we should be okay. Now, one last thing that I would put out there is the town, through the subcommittee, has asked us to begin the process of looking at our budgets from the point of view of starting with the same amount of money we had last year. What are we going to do with the same amount of money this year if that's all we get? So basically a zero increase budget. Again, I know we're going to have cuts at that point simply because even though we may be able to put some funding aside from savings and special ed, we still have some requirements in terms of doing the step increases and the negotiated contract with ASME that is still pending out there. So there'd be some cuts that would have to be made if that was the way that we had to create our budget. The other piece, and I think Dr. Condon brought it up, is that there are other needs in the system. The landmark program, we have a couple of classes at the middle school. We have some classrooms up here at the high school that have been trained to do this. However, as the students move one year to the next, we may need to expand those programs down into hopefully fifth and sixth, and then at the high school into 10th grade. That is people. We have accreditation coming up for the high school and for the Macomber School. Again, those are not part of the district improvement plan. These are just questions that have come up through the administrators. And then if you take a look at the district improvement plan for next year, there were some requests. Hey, if you want us to improve in this area or that area, you can't keep doing improvements with the same amount of money or worse, less money, one year to the next. So those requests put all together would be about $276,000. What I'm looking from the school committee is some direction as to where do we start? Do we try to look at what the budget looks like if we just have the same amount of money that we